the house that keeps on giving. Wild. You can bet this is absolutely going to be displayed in my house at some point because this is so freaking cool. So this morning Phil is downstairs taking care of that water leak, which we finally figured out what it was. Did I tell you we figured out what it was? Well, we figured out what it was, and Phil's down there trying to fix it this morning. He really wanted to try and do it last night at about 5:05 p.m. and I said maybe we should wait until tomorrow morning just in case you can't do it on your own. That way we have time to call a plumber and have them come over and fix it, and we won't have to go overnight without heat in the house. So he saw the reasoning in that. He agreed. So he's down first thing this morning working on that, and I am going to spend the morning trying to deal with the disaster that is this room. Because we're gonna start to need to lay in the heating in here, but it literally is so crowded I can't even move around. It's wild. So I'm gonna work on organizing this, get it cleaned up, so that the heating install is gonna go a little faster and a little easier. That's pretty cool. Much better. Oh, good grief. Well, that one's heavy. Guess I'll keep that one. So I'm just going through all these books here and figuring out which ones I want to keep and which ones I want to donate, because I do want to keep some of the ones that are, more interesting and that I might potentially read one day. And at first the book pile here, this box, was, very mundane and kind of boring, accounting principles, but then it very rapidly moved into more interesting topics: sex, death, enlightenment, the hot and sexy romance novels. We've got sexual astrology, and then of course nothing sexier than classical mythology. So these are clearly very interesting and well-rounded folks that lived here before me. Might have to keep some of these. Someone is going to have to explain this to me, because I'm not entirely sure I'm qualified to know what this is. What is going on? Okay, so I found a receipt. It looks like it was purchased on eBay. It claims to be an original German bond from 1922 worth 50,000 marks, but it says that it has good historical value, it's in excellent condition, but it doesn't have any stock value. It's just for collectors of old stock and bond certificates. Nevertheless, you can bet this is absolutely going to be displayed in my house at some point because this is so freaking cool. Stunning. I'm shocked. I love this. Oh my god. It's the house that keeps on giving. Wild. So several minutes and many strange discoveries later, this is where we're at. These are the books that I am keeping all here, and then there are many boxes of books that I can definitively now say they are to donate. I don't want anything in them, so they can be given away. Now the books here are kind of separated into two categories. There's the category of books I actually want to read, and then the other category of books that I don't really want to read, but they're very pretty, so I'm keeping them because they'll probably go on a bookshelf display at some point, even if I never touch them or open them. Just felt like a shame to give them away because they have such nice aesthetic and they belong in the house at this point, right? So now I can move all the stuff downstairs, clear it out so that we have room to actually start moving around in here.
So this was installed this summer, and we were away for like 2 months.
Our system has detected continuous consumption of water.
That's how it is now. So we need somebody to come and fix this.
As it turns out, someone was Phil himself.
Brand spanking new and shiny.
So you solder that to the 1-inch copper line. You put that on the copper line, then you solder that, and you can twist that inside the boiler, and then you come here and you unionize both like this.
Raise your hand if, as a kid, you loved the Flintstone gummy vitamins and occasionally ate a few too many because they were so good. Raise your hand if you still, as a full-grown adult, secretly eat your nieces and nephews' Flintstone vitamins every time you're at your brother's house. And that, folks, is why I partnered with today's sponsor, Groons, because while we might be kids at heart, we have adult bodies with adult nutritional needs, and Groons can fulfill some of those needs with their carefully formulated adult gummy vitamins. So they are a convenient and comprehensive formula. They packed it into 8 gummies a day. So this isn't a multivitamin or a greens gummy. It's not a probiotic. It's kind of all of those things rolled into one and at a fraction of the cost. Groons are very carefully formulated, so each pack's got 100% of your daily needs for vitamins and 25% of your daily needs for minerals. Those are the ones that you can actually get too many of in your regular diet. Plus, they're just delicious. I have always preferred the texture of vegan gummies over regular ones, and since Groon's recipe is vegan and they use pectin instead of gelatin, I find them not only delicious and convenient, but also texturally delightful. Really good mouthfeels in this one. So if you would like to make Groons a part of your daily routine, you can head to the link in the description and get up to 45% off. They come in these convenient little packs, so they are super simple to eat on the go, and they are delicious with just a hint of sweetness. So thank you so much to Groons for sponsoring this part of the video, and be sure to go check them out. So there were a lot of questions in the comment section about the whole water leak system, so we're down here in the basement to try and answer them. So first of all, the leak was not on something that we installed. All of the plumbing that we installed is in good condition, no leaks, still standing. The leak is on the water boiler itself back there, and that was what we hired the plumber to install. So, not our fault. Secondly, a lot of people were saying that we should turn the water off when we left the house for a couple months. Yeah, we do. We did. We always turn the water off to all the domestic water. It gets shut off when we leave the house. However, shutting it off to the heating system, not a great idea.
So this here is what we shut off when we leave. That feeds the house. We don't want any pipe to freeze, we shut that off. But the heating system has a self-replenishing feature that if there's a leak or some evaporation, the system automatically puts more water in the heating pipes, so the system stays pressurized.
And in fact, if we had shut off the water to the heating system, that slow, gradual leak would have drained the whole system and we wouldn't have had heating in the house, which, considering that we were rushing down to the wire to get heat in the house for the winter, would have kind of defeated the purpose.
And then lastly, a lot of you have been saying you really enjoy it when I leave Phil alone with a camera, which is actually exactly what I did for that repair, which meant that I got almost 2 hours straight of footage with no commentary and no narration, and I have no idea what he's doing. So I dragged him down here to the basement to explain to you firsthand what exactly he did to the boiler to fix it.
I had no idea what I was doing. And this was brand new and really expensive. So I took my time and barely managed to fix it. Come. This was the leaking part. So it's coupling a fitting that's part of the machine to the copper pipes. So it seemed that when it was installed, there was no tread sealant in there. So it was just slowly leaking and making a little puddle on the ground here. The problem is there's no flex in this system at all. It's all one chunk together. So removing this and moving the pipe out of the way was tricky, and I didn't want to snap a fitting or to break something part of the machine that's super expensive to replace. But with careful attention, I was able to fix it. And by wiggling everything, that created a little leak here, but turns out that was only because these bolts were loose, and adding a little bit of tread lock before tightening them solved that. So when the heating system was installed, it was less than 24 hours before we had to leave for months. We were super happy that it happened, but it was not done in the most thought through way. You can see the thermostat situation here. Electricity is shoddy at best. It's working, but you know, it could be better. And also, normally with this kind of boilers, you install a bunch of valves and shutoffs, so you're able to run vinegar in the system to flush and descale it once a year, once every 6 months. None of this is there, so eventually we're gonna have to redo this whole, at least bottom section, to make it more serviceable and so it lasts longer.
All right, the task at hand, regardless of whether we want it or not, is that I have here, I've got all the calculations that we made the other day of how much yardage of baseboard radiators we need in every room. And now we're just gonna go and walk the circuit and go through every room and measure and plan and figure out how that's gonna be split up. So if a room needs 10 total yards of radiator in it, are we gonna do one long 10-foot radiator? Are we gonna do two shorter, like 5 and 5, 4 and 6? There's actually one room where I think we're actually gonna do 3 radiators. So that's the plan. I've got my paper, my pencil. I'm gonna grab a tape measure, and I honestly don't anticipate that it's going to be that interesting. So that probably means that you're gonna be getting another snappy montage. So I'll see you in 1 minute. Go. How far does 8 feet take us?
That's 8 foot.
That's a little tight. 10 foot was what we had been talking about. Does that work?
Need 8, but we said probably 10. Comes through 5 and 5.
5 foot's gonna be center with a 6-inch on either side.
Well, there's lots of other alternatives. We just don't have the time or money to do it.
Go 10 feet, a loop to do around.
So 5 and 5.
Ta-da! See, that wasn't so bad, was it? At least not for you. So now we've got all the radiators that we'll need, all the various lengths and how many of them. So that means we can go place our order with our plumbing supply company, and I'm sure they're not gonna have all of them in stock, not in this weather. So we'll probably have to wait a little bit for some of them to come in. In the meantime, we can start demoing the bathroom behind me. And yeah, one more item checked off the list. Always good feeling. I also thought that this would be probably a good time to tell you about the tentative heating plan that we have come up with. Now, this is subject to change, but we're like 85 to 90% sure that this is how we're going to do it. So The bathroom is going to be on its own separate loop, in part because we might actually do heated floors up there instead of radiators. I would love to do that. I just don't know if it's going to be feasible cost wise for us. But also because it's very, very tricky to then get from that bathroom into the rest of the house, because it is an extension and it is like set up there. You have to like step up to go into the bathroom. It was proving a little bit of a challenge to get from the bathroom into the rest of the house. So we decided that that's going to be a separate loop. Then to do the rest of the upstairs, we're basically going to run from the water boiler. We're going to run it in the basement until we can pop up in the closet right here in the corner of this room that I'm sitting in. We did think about running them in the pipes, the existing cast iron pipes in here, but there were a couple problems with that. They're going to be so dirty and full of shmoo on the inside. They could also be rough and jagged, and that's quite a long stretch to try to get the PEX through, because the PEX naturally wants to be kind of curved until you've like run a lot of water through it, and then it gets quite malleable and it will form to whatever shape you put it in. But just to originally run the PEX in there would be really annoying. Plus there would be not a great way to like visually inspect it to make sure that it didn't get damaged when you were jamming it through what would be almost 13 feet of ancient cast iron pipes. Like if there were any little jagged bits in there that snagged it, we might not know. Didn't seem like a great plan, but suffice to say that our current solution is going to be to run it up in the corner of this closet here, which is an interior space. It is, conditioned and insulated. And then it's going to pop up in the bedroom, where we're going to do one long run of radiators, which is then going to have the pipes poke through the wall into the adjacent red room, which is hopefully going to be my crafting room eventually. But before I get ahead of myself, it needs some heat. So they're going to come through the wall between the bedroom and the craft room. And then we decided here to do 2 radiators, one under each window. So this is the part that we're not 100% sure of. We might do copper, just visible copper pipes between the 2 radiators. Or what I would really like to do is run the pipes under the floorboards and just have them pop up above the floorboards to attach to the radiator and then go back down. Very similar to how it's done here on the main floor. It's a little bit risky, because then if something goes wrong, you do have your pipes under the floorboards, but we can do it so there wouldn't be any joints under there. It would only be continuous unbroken runs of PEX tubing. So that's the only thing that we're a little bit undecided on, but there are going to be 2 radiators in here, and then it is going to poke through the wall between the red room and the sunroom, the room with the giant windows. And here we're going to do 3 little radiators on each wall of, where there's the big windows there. And I think eventually it could be quite nice, because I would like to build a window seat there so you can sit and look out, but then also, have the walls be vented, be grates, so that the air can circulate and pass in and out. But that is so far down the line that I'm not worrying about it right now. Basically, what I am worrying about is that is a tiny room, but with a huge and very well ventilated at the moment window. So there's a lot of breeze coming in there. Glass has a horrible R factor, so very poor insulator glass. So we need a lot of heat in that room. We're going to do it with 3 little ones. And then from there, we're going to go back, I think, under the floorboards, little shenanigans to pop out in the hallway and do a small radiator in the hallway where you saw us measuring earlier today. And then we're going to go back down to the basement by replacing the existing cast iron pipes with copper piping. This is kind of our tribute to the origins of the house and the pipes that used to be in every room here, is that we're going to have 2 visible pipes running, because we couldn't think of any other way to do it. to be quite honest, but also because I thought it was kind of a nice tribute. So we were like, you know, copper it's not cheap, but it's not that expensive. We can afford 2 13-foot stretches. That's how we're gonna get the water back down to the basement on both sides of the house. So that is the current plan. I'm sure I've lost like half of you with me talking, but the other half of you are probably thrilled to know what the plan is, and you will see us executing that plan in future episodes. So now you know what's going on. Thank you for bearing with me. On with the film. So we've decided to spend a few hours this afternoon trying to make the house a little bit more airtight and warm. So we're gonna be using a thermal camera. You've seen us use this before. It's been really handy around here, just pinpointing the areas where all the warm air is leaking out, and therefore making it easy for us to sort of efficiently decide where to put our time and energy, like the most bang for our buck. So these are all, fair warning, these are all gonna be short-term solutions. Eventually, more permanent things are gonna need to be done. We're going to need to repair or replace plaster, things like that. But for now, because we have so much else on our plate with the bathroom and the heating on the second floor, that the whole system needs to be done. So we're just gonna try to do some like really short-term quick repairs, and hopefully this is gonna help us do it. So let's get started.
So on the list of things to do, seal some holes. So you can see here on the non-thermal camera that there's a bunch of plaster missing. And this leads directly to the joist bays in the floor of the second floor. So you can see, if you look there, all the heat from the baseboard gets up there and gets sucked in there and disappears in the ceiling. So we're gonna put some plastic over it as a temporary band-aid.
Other potential problem spots?
That's not a problem spot, that's just a cute spot.
Everyone loves a good thermal corgi.
Oh yeah. So the other problem child is this plaster spot. If you look anywhere else on the wall, the temperature is pretty constant, but because the heat can escape by the lath, everything is getting sucked down there, and you can see the massive hot spot on the wall. So you can see with the transparency slider exactly where you're looking at, the heat difference. And the rest of the room here, the heat is pretty even. And then you arrive there and it's a big sinkhole.
Well, first things first, we're gonna start with this hole right here with some help from Barbara. Thank you so much, Barbara, for the tuck tape. Let's get this hole patched up. Time for patch number 2. Whee! Okay, cool. 1 down, 2 down.
3 down.
Next.
So that's the repair job we did, and let's see the results. Much better. This is just the heat coming up from the baseboard, but the rest of this section looks way more even.
We also saw that this giant crack in the plaster of this wall, which is an exterior wall, was actively letting out a lot of warm air, presumably up straight into the attic. So this was also something that we could quickly and easily repair just to help keep the house a little bit warmer. One thing I have noticed as we were using this is that they have a new app, and it has some new features that I wanted to share with you because they're kind of useful. So most of the app functions like the previous app did, but they have a couple new sections here. So if you go in the bottom corner where it says function and you click on that, and then on the top here where it says testing guidance, so they're giving you tips on how to parse the information that you're seeing here and use it to better, tighten your house up. So they've got these 4 sections here: wall leakage, HVAC systems, door and window insulation, and pest detection. So for example, if we are going to be going around and looking at the walls and looking for leaks, it's going to kind of run you through how to do that. So first up, it's going to recommend that you do it when there's a big temperature difference between outside and inside. For example, the reason that we are actually doing this test today, why we decided to go around and spend these hours today, is because it's really cold outside. So that's going to really amplify the difference between the cold spots and the warm spots. Then they have sections on tips. You can read through all these tips like, pay more attention to areas that are prone to wall leakage, like corners and doors, windows, cracks in your wall, as we already saw. The leaky crack in our upstairs wall, definitely not only leaking water, but also leaking air. And then, you can scroll down past the tips and they give you the typical errors, which is very useful. If it's your first time using a thermal camera, here are some of the errors you might be making. They kind of walk you through this for the 4 main reasons that you might be using the thermal camera. So yeah, that was kind of some of the changes that I noticed in the new app, which I think it's great that they're going in and continuing to improve like the user experience in the app, and also just trying to enable and empower DIYers and home improvers to understand what it is that they're seeing and to be able to use this tool properly, because it's a really powerful tool. But if you're not sure what you're looking for, then you might not be using it to its fullest extent. So when I knew that we were going to be doing this segment, I did reach out to Topton and to see if they wanted to work with me again, and they agreed. So as usual, I have some discount codes for both American viewers and Canadian viewers in the links below. So if you are thinking about getting a thermal camera, if you yourself live in an old drafty house, which I know from the comments a lot of you do, if you are considering getting one, I can highly recommend the Topton. We've used it both on these on-screen segments, but also we've used it a bunch off-screen, just like wandering around the house and slowly patching things here and there. So definitely give it a recommendation. If you're thinking about get one, check out the codes in the description, and thank you to Topton for sponsoring this segment and for just having a really high quality product.
Another example of things we don't see. So here we are at the top of the stairs, and you can clearly see a line where the hot air is accumulating. So what we're going to do is put a fan right up as high as we can that shoots the hot air down, and try to give some of that heat downstairs. Eventually we should probably have a ceiling fan here that just does a gentle blow downwards.
Good thing I dropped several $100s on fans last year.
So we can see that right behind it is a bit cold. Yeah, the best would be the ventilator to be a bit higher, because it's just at the limit of the warmer air layer. But it's doing something. So update on the tape job. I cannot see any sign of heat infiltration, or very little. That's a good sign. But what we can see is this wall here has a diagonal bracing inside and basically no insulation under that.
You can really see
the
effect.
So even though we filled the wall cavity from the attic with as much blown in as we could, it could not make it in that bay because of the brace.
And now that we've had some time for the air to circulate and kind of acclimate, let's see if the very first patch we did has made a noticeable difference. Hopefully, yes.
So more time that passes, the more obvious it is that what we did something.
How crooked is that?
Now we should slide that corgi. Huh? Hello, corgi. That cold snoot is cold.